Hello, hello, my Soulpreneur Life family and friends. I am so thrilled to bring you this episode. We have a beautiful guest, Miss Jessica, today, and she is a feminine embodiment and intimacy coach. And I absolutely adore her. She has such powerful healing information to share with us just about connection and relationships and connecting with the feminine energies within you, right? So before I go on this big long tangent, Miss Jessica, you want to introduce yourself and connect?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. I feel very honored to be here and I'm just very grateful. So thank you for this space and this space to share voice and truth, which is really needed in this world. So yeah, as you said, I'm a feminine embodiment coach working with intimacy, and my work is really around just empowering women and helping women to understand, explore, and remember and uncover their true potential, which is love, and know how to soften into this magical body that we've been given. And I use a lot of different healing modalities from my own background in samba. So I incorporate erotic dance along with breath work and meditation and other ancient tantric tools like breast massage, just really beautiful, sensual pleasure and opportunities to deeply connect with this inner wisdom within us that is forgotten and that we always have access to. And the more that we access this, the more we really understand that we're here for bigger things than just staying small and hiding our light. We are here for love. And I just desire for all to know this, because when we do, it ripples out and touches the lives of other women, and it gives other women who haven't done this work of connecting with their womb and connecting with their hearts and sensuality. It gives them the permission to also know that they're safe to open and be vulnerable and to speak with love, and that we don't have to get defensive and prove our worth. And then it ripples out and touches men as well, men who require this love and require our sensuality, because the truth is men have been hurt as well. They're in hiding as well of their own values and power and purpose. And I feel like our gentle, soft, loving, fierce, powerful nature can really, really offer men space as well to be with all that they are and vulnerable. And
I have chills because you are so right. And I don't want to get off, but men have so many wounds and they kind of put a band-aid over it with whatever that looks like, right? Whether it's toxic masculinity or like this like chismoso type facade, right? All of these masks and things where they don't allow themselves to even connect with their own emotions and their own needs and their own experience as a human, right? And so then they lash out in ways that may not be healthy or beneficial. So I just love how when we hold space for ourselves to be true and authentic to our experience, it allows other people to do the same, right? Like we give people that permission to give themselves the permission to show up for themselves, for their relationships, for their community in ways where they're not totally just burnt out and running on fumes, because they have that balance and they understand, like, I have a purpose, but if I'm off today, like my community is going to hold me up because I've already cultivated or I've already created and poured into and created that sustainable balance. And I think that that's really like what you've just shared is just so profound. It just gave me so many thoughts and feels like.
Yeah, and I love that you're saying all of that, and knowing as well when to, I feel like it's like a dance with these energies within us, moving from one to the other. And I feel like we're getting really stuck with there's a lot out there and a lot of information out there now about the feminine and about the masculine and how we need to be in this perfect balance, and we need to be in the flow, we need to be in surrendered states, and we need to be masculine as well. And yes, but I'm feeling overwhelmed by all of this, and I feel like even that is keeping us into these little boxes of how we need to be and how we need to show up. And I also feel like it puts us, there's a lot of pressure as well. And oh, I need to be more soft, I need to be more gentle, I need to, okay, now for my business I need to be more like this, for my relationship I need to be more like this, rather than just allowing space to, I feel like, for nourishment and replenishment and connection with our body. And then in that space, we really know our truth. And I feel like we're just getting stuck in all of these labels of masculine and feminine and what's better and how to be in balance, when really it's just this dance, knowing how to be in synergy, how to be in flow from one to the other. Like right now, I'm in my complete feminine right now. This is just me. And there's also this masculine of strength holding both of us, but that's because we're doing that together. And it doesn't need to be complicated. So I just wanted to mention that. Yeah.
I love that you brought that up. And just, something that is kind of echoing in my mind is how you work with the physical body, right? And I am very open that I am a thinker. So I have to be very intentional with bringing myself to feel things, because I will overanalyze a thought or a feeling before I recognize the feeling in my body. And a fear that I had, and when I was transitioning from being in the army and very masculine and very action, like go, 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 survival mode, into finding oh, safety or calm is kind of terrifying, and all of that. It was almost a defense mechanism to not feel in my body or to numb, right? And for me, it was wine. Like I would drink wine to not feel, or to kind of push through certain things. But when you, like you said, breath work, and you said about physical touch and massage and things like that, some people are so deprived of physical touch, especially people who are celibate, right? So if you are not allowing yourself to bring yourself into your body, whether it's noticing a feeling, like I feel fear and I don't feel safe, perhaps leaning into feminine or perhaps leaning into my masculine, like where does that show up in your body, and how do you navigate through that fear? So I guess my question to you would be, I'm going to be a curious student here. How would you recommend someone begin leaning into their energy, their divine feminine, and what that means to them? Because I know that there are so many definitions of what it means to be that embodiment of feminine energy. So what would you?
I love this. Just have to be careful not to take up hours speaking about it, because I probably could. But I think, you know what, the first thing I think would be to dismantle what the feminine means and how we know the feminine, and how we've learnt about what we've learnt about the feminine, and where we've learnt about this.
Where?
Yes.
Yes.
A lot of us know it from our mothers, and how they do their relationships, how they connect with themselves or how they don't connect with themselves. And how, and that's how a lot of us have learned about love as well, and safety. And so we can go down that road of safety and how we show up for love, and how we really open ourselves up to that. But really, it's all about, yes, connection. I think most of us women and men, we are all just, we're just trying to survive. And we're all in this, and we're trying to stay afloat. We're trying to push. We're trying to achieve. We're doing more to prove our worth, to prove our place here in this world. We just need to know that we're already worthy. We are already doing enough just by being here, by showing up. As a woman, you will always be navigating different emotions. Always. It's just in our nature. We are emotional beings. And I think it's one of our most beautiful gifts, but it's also, it can work against us if we haven't learned how to safely anchor into the body and safely connect and deeply and have that direct experience with whatever is moving through us, or these sensations that we feel. Because the truth is, your body will speak to you. Your body speaks a language that we haven't been taught, and we tend to ignore it, and it feels scary. And because it feels scary, because we have this capacity as women to feel a wide range of emotions in one moment, we're multitaskers. Lucky us, but we can go from feeling pain to laughing, to crying, to so many different things in one moment. And I feel like we just haven't learned how to anchor in safety into knowing how to hold all of these emotions. So then it doesn't have to become, they don't have to all become our story and have to mean anything. And rather than distracting and pushing them away because we feel afraid to go there, I see it all the time. And instead of just being gentle and compassionate with yourself, we're pushing everything away. And the more we push, the more these emotions and sensations develop into something else, because they haven't been felt fully through the body in the most safe, holy way. Because this is holy work. The feminine is holy. It's very magical. It's the body. And we can't understand the feminine. She learns and she thrives through the body. Yeah. And that's something we're not doing. We're living from the mind, which is important, because you and I wouldn't be sitting here today if we hadn't done, the work of the consciousness, if we hadn't dissected things. But when we're doing this constantly, every day, and living from that space, we become exhausted. Yes. So going back to your question, sorry, I went on a tangent.
Beautiful. It was needed. It was beautiful. I'm sitting here like, yes, I resonate with this. I can think of examples. Okay.
Yes. Well, I'd love to hear them, but yeah, touching, just bringing that touch into your body. And we have the tools of pleasure, of touch, and we have our breath to really meet with life through our breath. Yeah. And bit by bit, we can soften into the pain. We can soften into those stories. And instead of getting rid of it, distracting or pretending it's not there, we can slowly shift our pain, shift our old patterns and defensive mechanisms into gentleness and love. There will always be that place. That's the duality. There will always be a place of love and gentleness and love. I said love, 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 love. And compassion. That is, it stands with the pain. Yeah. So it's just knowing how to soften into that beneath the layers. Yeah.
There's something about that I find so beautiful about how you share the softening into, because I know when I was petrified, Like, I don't think some people can understand until they experience this. And that's probably why we have a world that judges others so easily. But when I was going through my deepest, darkest depression, right? And it's like you said, I had all of these feelings all at once, and it became so overwhelming that I began turning certain things off, right? To survive, like you mentioned, right? I was like, how do I survive when I feel like not existing? How do I survive when I feel so overwhelmed? And like giving permission to feel softness was the most unsafe thing ever. But allowing myself to slowly give that to myself bit by bit without saying, okay, because I'm a Virgo moon, so that perfection, right? And saying like, I can practice being soft with myself. And if I don't get it right, it's okay. I can practice receiving. And you know, what that did for me was it brought people into my life who were wanting to give to me, but I was so petrified of receiving. And they were so gentle. Like, and these are people who I look at like family, and they're not my blood, right? And they've become family. And it was because they have walked the walk before me, and they saw something that I couldn't see. And so instead of forcing or pressuring, they just held space, and they said, this is here for you. And they allowed me to soften into that receiving, right? And navigating that feeling of it's uncomfortable to, okay, this isn't quid pro quo. They don't want anything from me. This is a genuine act, right? Allowed me to shift gears and really say, this is something that I need to do, not just for me, but for my daughter. And you had touched on the topic of we learn so much from our caregivers, whether it's our mothers or grandmothers and generations before us, right? And I had taken time to look back, and I didn't have like a traditional upbringing, so to say. So I had many different caregivers, from people who were family to people who were not family. Throughout my entire life, I would go from one family to another until I was about 16, 17. I moved out of my big sister's house, and I moved in with who would become my husband, before all of that. So what that did was I was looking back at all of those relationships and saying, well, I guess I can settle for this, or I guess this is what it's supposed to look like, not really having a blueprint, but just kind of going and being brave and just, like what they say, pedal to the metal, like just flooring it and going really hard, really fast, and just throwing all of my eggs in one basket to try to experience something and try to make it work. But I wasn't anchored into anything, so that when it didn't work, I didn't lose myself and I didn't completely detach. Right. And I think a lot of women can relate to that. And I see certain patterns repeat within my family. And so with that in the back of my mind, I'm like, what can I do differently from this point of knowing that could help my daughter, my nieces, like my family, right? Because I love them. I have a great capacity for love, but I often don't give myself that soft love. I give myself hard love, detached love, like that. It should be perfect. It should be right. And I had a therapist tell me years ago, when we were talking, I can't remember how he said it, but basically my feedback was I should have known XYZ. And he was like, but how were you supposed to know that if no one ever taught you? If no one ever told you? Right. So how you were sharing about softening and making those changes, it just really resonated with my heart, because some of us are so critical of ourselves and so loving and soft for others. Right. So
and you're not alone. I did that as well for all of my other relationships. And this is the first relationship where I can say that I feel completely me, completely loved and cherished and adored. And I have space to be messy. I have space to be imperfect. I have space to stand up and be fierce and say how it is without feeling like I'm going to be judged or he's going to leave me.
Yeah.
I had to create this container for us, though. I created the energy that I wanted to step into. I wasn't doing that before, and it's because I wasn't trusting myself. When we don't trust ourselves, and so we go into these relationships wearing masks, playing a role or playing a game or manipulating to become desirable or to get their attention or to get what we need, because that's what we've learned. That's how you receive love. And it doesn't last. We go into relationships and we lose ourselves or we close our hearts because we are afraid of being hurt. We don't realize our true power as women as this guardian of love. And when our hearts are closed, when our hearts are closed, we're not able to fully receive the other person in the way that they can. And then we feel like we start blaming, and then we go down this spiral of complaining and nagging and picking at every little thing, and we lose ourselves. We lose our anchor. We lose why we're here. We lose our truth. And then we feel like we're fighting in these relationships to be heard and to be seen. And I think that's what we all want as women, is to be fully seen and heard and cherished and adored. And then because we're not offering that to ourselves, that intimacy, creating space and an environment where we can be so connected with everything, whether it's sadness and pain or happiness and joy, if we're not providing that container, we go then into relationships still not trusting ourselves and still creating this dynamic that's not nourishing to us. And we then reflect this person then becomes this reflection of all these things that we still haven't owned within ourselves, this worth and power and we lose ourselves. So I resonated with your story, and for a long time, that's what I was doing. And if anything, I was over-giving in my relationships, giving because I felt like the more that I give, the more they're going to love me.
Yes.
Receive me. And it doesn't work like that.
It does not work that way. Oh my gosh, I've been guilty of that one too.
And it's okay. It's okay. And I've actually gone down the spiral of feeling that guilt as well, and getting caught in the story of guilt and I shouldn't have done that. Why did I do that? I don't like that. I didn't like that person who I was. And we go down that, and we just don't offer ourselves compassion and to know that none of these mistakes, nothing in the past defines who you are today, but we have a choice. It's our responsibility to show up differently and to be devoted to this path of nourishment and to be in this ravishment of life. We need to open our eyes. We're just blind. We're walking through life blind. I might sound a bit harsh, but
not at all. Not at all. And as you're sharing it, I can think of some of the girlfriends that I've had in the past when they were going through like relationship stuff. What do? You call up your girlfriends and you talk about certain things. And there have been times where there have been conversations because I've made a choice to be single, and just focus on my own healing and raising my daughter and all of that. Like I had a lot to deconstruct. Like I got married at 18. So there was a lot that I needed to work on before I could even have an understanding of who I am, before I ask a partner to be anything like miraculous for me or fantastic, right? Like I had to have an understanding. And in some of those conversations, some of the things that come up is often like, well, why don't you date around until you figure out what you want or this and that? And for me, and I understand everyone is different, but for me, and just speaking from my own experience without judgment for anyone else and how they want to live their life, I can't be clear going from one person to another, because so often in my experience and from what I've heard my girlfriends share with me, they start to take on personality traits of their partner or hobbies of their partner, and they stop doing the things that they love. And then they get years into the relationship and they're not happy because they either don't have friends or they don't have hobbies, or they're only seen as a title like mom, housewife, or things of that nature, right? And they lose more of themselves and they keep giving more of their power away without recognizing it all the time. And then there's this deep disconnect, right? And I think that that's another really powerful part of connecting, and women supporting other women and healing that sisterhood wound, and just allowing yourself to be aware. If you can't tap into it just yet, but just like be aware that you're not alone in any of these experiences. And so many women, like you and I were talking before we started recording, and we had this parallel experience, right? Where they're both unique, but we have that sisterhood where it's like we want others to feel good. We want others to feel empowered and seen and heard, and connect not only with themselves, but with their community, with their sisterhood, because that also allows us to sustain whatever else that we create in our relationships, in our friendships, in our businesses. And for me, that overflows into how I can maintain a level of balance for myself that feels good for me with my masculine energy and with my feminine energy, because I do like to be in my head. And so I have to consciously bring myself back, like bring myself back down and say, no, hold on, pause. Like, it's okay. Like, because if not, my anxiety spikes because I'm in my head and I'm disconnected and all of that. But then there's other times where there's that balance, and being in my head, like you mentioned, it connects the dots, it gets things done, and it feels really good because it's nourishing to the parts of me that really love doing those things. Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it too. I mean, I'm mostly in my masculine when I'm in my business, and that's necessary. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be guiding and leading and doing all the things if it wasn't for that direct vision that I have and really showing up with clarity. But that couldn't happen. And I've tried by floating around and going from dream to dream and desire to desire. It just didn't happen. We feel chaotic, and that's how we get all confused, and there's no direction in our life. And then that could be actually, if it actually relates to what you're saying, again, no judgment, but by going from man to man, and I feel like it can create a bit of uncertainty with maybe what you really want and what you really need. And I think that's what we need to get real about, is understanding and having clarity about exactly what we want as women, what we need, where we want to go with that in our life.
Yeah. And not be afraid, right?
Not be afraid.
I'm sure you've heard it from people that either you work with or know, like some people are afraid to be alone, or some people are afraid to not have a partner.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I love a lot of the work that I do. It's all about well, we work a lot with sexuality, and then women realize that I can nourish myself. I can feel these sexual pleasures within me and use it for my highest good, for myself on my own. And then with that, you understand what touch you love, how to open up to sound, how to open up to movement in a way that feels authentic to you. And sure, you can explore that with a partner. And I feel like there's a different level of intimacy with someone else, but it's not limited to having a partner, that you can find bliss and pleasures and love on your own, because that source, that resource is within us. And
the fact that you're touching on how they can be two separate experiences is so important, because going back to what you said about our caregivers, so speaking about not just sexuality, but the act of sex and your body, and for women menstruating, right? All of those things for my upbringing were shameful. You don't talk about them. And I look back on my life and some of my experiences and going through childbirth. And after I became a mom, I was like, how was I ever allowed to have sex when I didn't know some of these things? Or how was I ever allowed to become a mom when I didn't even realize my body did these things, right? And it's because of that recycled generational belief that you don't talk about it. And it's almost like there's a disconnect, like your body is for your partner, not for you, right? And so with that, there's so many people in my family who are uncomfortable talking about those things, but then they want to be wild and party and have sex and do all of this without realizing that it's sacred. Like you are sacred, and what you're doing, like your body is powerful, your energy is powerful, your womb. And if you're uncomfortable talking about that, but you're comfortable letting someone else have access to your body, you're comfortable letting someone else tap into your energy and do all of these things, like there's something else that needs to be explored there, because something is not aligned within that thought process.
absolutely. I completely resonate with you there. I have a history of complete repression of sexuality because of my religious background growing up, as a Catholic Sicilian girl. You just don't, it's a complete sin to speak about, to even say the word sex. I mean, even to kiss your boyfriend in front of, it just is non-existent, and it's seen as something taboo. And because of that, I went into this other way, moved through my life, my 20s, with this distorted idea of what it means to be sexually empowered. And so I went the other way in that rebellious way of over giving my sexuality, because I was in complete repression of it. And a lot of women that come to me, it is where we have so many similar stories. We either completely repress it out of the fear, and we're just afraid of giving that or even feeling sexual, or we overgive it. We misuse our sexuality because we don't understand, like you said, the sacredness of it, and that it's actually this beautiful direct pathway into touching spirit, to touching your divinity.
Yeah.
And this is how we actually receive. This is how we bring life into our life. I mean, not just a baby, but our business, our desires, our dreams. How I think that's magical. We have that power.
People don't recognize, or not all people, some people don't recognize that creative energy is sexual energy.
Right.
And it's braided together, it's intertwined, and that's okay. And there's no part of any of us that should be shamed or repressed. It should be explored with curiosity, and then learned about, so that you can figure out how that looks for you and what it is that you are creating with your life and your experience and your energy and all of those things. So
Yeah, and just being in complete like bliss of what that feels like as well for yourself. And men love it too, or your partner loves to see you in that surrendered state of complete ravishment of where your pleasures, what they bring you. And this is the power of the yoni as well. It reminds you of your feminine power, which has this ability to feel so much. And the more, I'm going down this spiral now of talking about and here we are we're pushing ourselves to have sex, pushing ourselves to open. We're in this constant force because we're not listening to our bodies and what we truly need and what it means to be softened and surrendered and just in that state of that bliss. And once we are, that's when we open, our yoni opens, or we can use that as a metaphor. Our body opens. And when we do, we receive and we allow the goodness to enter our hearts, the goodness of life to be felt through us.
And then the people around us experience the benefit of that too. Something that I remember, and I don't want to trigger anyone, but I'm going to talk about something that just when I was married, I often felt like when there was a disconnect in my marriage, sex didn't feel like something that I wanted to do, right? And so some women feel like they can't say no to their partner, and so that's disempowering. Or they feel like if they say no to their partner, that their partner is going to cheat. But when you are truly happy and you're connected, all of that is so natural. And so it's not just like you feel good, you feel connected, you feel blissful, but you're connecting with your partner in that way where you don't feel obligated, you don't feel pressured, you don't feel icky, right? Absolutely. And when I was younger and early on in my marriage, there was a lot of times where, like you said, I felt like, well, he's my husband, like, here we go, right? But there are times when it's like, I'm just trying to nourish myself right now because I feel depleted, or I feel this and I feel that. So I love that you brought that up because it allowed me to think about how I've progressed through that too. Because I was definitely on that extreme bar, like, and then I felt shame and all of these other things too during the process of that, during the marriage or whatever, because I just almost feel like there's this pressure that society puts on women in relationships to always be ready and prepared and like turned on, even if the partner isn't mentally stimulating you, even if there is distrust. So for me, mentally, I checked out before I physically checked out because I was so disgusted when I found out that he cheated that I was like, I don't even want you kissing me. Like, that is disgusting. Right. But then you try to go to therapy or you try to like do these other things. And it's like, there's just like this process. And so going through that to reconnect with myself and to tell myself I forgive myself, to tell myself, like, you know, all of those things I needed to nurture and care for. Like, if you are listening to this and you resonate, just know that you are not alone. And there is no experience that I think any of us have had that is singular to or just exclusive to us. So
we're all going through the same thing. And I'm sorry you had to go through that. It would have, but I'm happy to hear that you found that place inside of you where you could. The forgiveness part is just so important because, like I said earlier, we can get stuck in our old thoughts and stories, and we make them become something that they don't have to be, or we go down that the path of feeling unworthy, and we lose ourselves in that. And I wanted to mention as well, I'm in a loving relationship and it's conscious and beautiful, but that is not to say that and we've been together for 6 years, and I'm very I speak my standards, my boundaries. I'm very, what's the word? Like I don't hold back with them. I don't hold back. But there are places inside of me where the guilt still shows up in saying no. I've done all the work. I've done so much healing, and it still shows up. And it just shows that this is a never-ending journey, so don't feel hard on yourself, to the people listening. Don't feel bad. Don't be so hard on yourself if they do show up, these thoughts. And I do feel, and men are just different. They get turned on at the sight of anything. So
For real.
and we require that space and time to fully deepen into our connection and intimacy. We need time, we need presence, we need to be, it's all presence. That's what it is. And if we're in our day-to-day life, moving, going, doing all the things, achieving and moving through life really fast, ticking off all the boxes, and if we haven't created space in our day, created an environment where our sensuality can be felt and move through us, it becomes a bit more difficult to then go into sexual experiences, to switch. We just don't work like that. We need to create that container, a framework for us to know how to move into that. And just going back to that feeling of guilt, the feelings sit deep inside of our bodies, these sensations, these old, it sits in our cells. And it's generational as well, to say no, or to feel like it's okay to say no. He's not going to leave me, or I'm not unworthy, or I'm not unlovable. So it takes, you have to know yourself. It takes consciousness, awareness to know when you're feeling these things. So I do, if my partner is in the mood and I'm just not there, my head is still in, I have to create this Instagram post. And there will be times I feel it in my body. That's the thing. Your body speaks to you. She will tell you, oh, there's that place of guilt where you gave your power away in the past. Mm-hmm. You gave yourself to someone because you felt guilty. You didn't want to be seen as unworthy. And so you lost your power. And so that is still playing in my body, even though I've done all the work. So it still shows up, and it's okay that it shows up. We just have to bring that to our awareness and know we have the strength within us to say, like, hey, I'm feeling this. I feel guilt right now. It's okay. It doesn't define me. I don't have to feed into this guilt. I'm just going to breathe into that, and then have the courage as well to speak that to your partner and say, I'm not in it right now. Just give me some time right now. And to say no is a power as well.
It really is. And to have a partner who is aware or conscious enough to receive that and not see it as a reflection of them, right? To be open to that conversation. When I became a mom, I made more mom friends, obviously, right? And during nursing, or during that period where you're home with your kid, there comes a point, especially when they become a toddler, where you are overstimulated by touch, because they're constantly crawling over you and needing something, and like you don't have a routine yet, or you don't have a balance because you're figuring it out, right? And when I've had conversation with other mom friends of mine who felt overstimulated by touch and unseen or unsupported by partners, they don't want to be intimate with their partner because they haven't had time for themselves yet. Most of the time, they rarely even had a chance to wash their hair or clean their body or anything like that, right? And so I think from what you've shared and what it kind of triggered in my mind is just how valuable this work is for everyone, because not only does it allow the woman to say, this is what I'm going to vocalize, but it creates that dialogue, that communication between her and her partner. And then she can have a choice to say, you know, this is what I need. And if you don't meet those needs, there are consequences for that. And then for her to stand in her power and enforce those consequences for that relationship not meeting those needs. And I'm not talking about being vengeful and holding your body away from someone as punishment or anything like that. But no, like, hey, if we can't work through this on our own, maybe we go to therapy, maybe we get an intimacy coach, or maybe we do all of these other things so that we can come together where I feel good, you feel good, we feel good together, our home life feels good together. And then it helps the masculine and the feminine heal and feel emboldened and empowered to show up and to share. Right. And I think that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
So before because I could talk about this forever. So before I get on another tangent, I just want for you to share with our audience today where they can connect with you, or I believe you have a free offer that you want to share with the listeners today.
Yes.
Do you want to go ahead and share that?
Oh, I'd love to. Yes, thank you. You can find me on jessicaangileri.com. It's just my website where everything is. And I have a free offering. It's a 7-day program. And I invite you to just go through different practices, somatic, sensual practices. Is a mix of breath work, connecting with your womb and heart, pleasure practices. There's a meditation in there as well, just different ways and gentle ways and simple ways where we can just give us the permission to just drop into the body and listen to what is really there, and listen and connect with our intuitive guidance. So that's an erotic embodiment series. It's a 7-day process that you can take yourself through, and each of them build upon one another as well. So it's lovely to do it in order. So I have that. It's a free 7-day series, and yeah, you can connect with me on Instagram, jessica.angileri, or I have a Facebook group, a private Facebook group, Erotic Hearts Sisterhood. That's what it's all about, isn't it? The sisterhood, where we combine our love and our erotic nature together, our primal sexual nature, and really share our experiences in a loving group. Yeah, thank you.
I just want to say it's always so lovely when I'm able to talk to you, but it's been an honor to have this conversation and to be able to collab for this episode, because I know the work that you do is so needed in this world right now, where so many are tapping into different aspects of themselves and becoming aware that they even need healing, or that they need to work through some things, right? And so sharing your message, having you here, it's just been such an honor, and I'm so grateful to you. Thank you. I'm so grateful. And to all of our listeners, make sure that you subscribe, and down in the description will be all of her contact information, so you can reach out to her, you can connect, join her Facebook group, do all of the things. And I'm sending each and every single one of you a lot of love, and I look forward to seeing you all on our next episode.
Yay.
All right, take care.
Thank you so much. It's been such an honor. Thank you.